Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. The fog was thick, like wet cotton wrapped around the trees. Mason, a human supply engineer, sat alone on a strange alien moon. His ship had crashed 2 days ago during a sudden engine failure. Now he was stranded. No radio, no shelter. Only a small campfire crackling in the middle of the dark forest. He pulled his jacket tighter and stared into the flames. The heat warmed his hands, but not his heart. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered to himself. The trees around him were tall and twisted, with dark leaves and glowing red veins. The air smelled like wet stone. The wind made soft whispering, sounds as if the forest was breathing. Mason kept the fire alive by feeding it pieces of broken ship panels and dry alien bark. The only sounds were crackling flames and the occasional rustle of leaves. But then, he heard something new. Footsteps. Slow. Soft. Coming closer through the fog. He grabbed a metal rod beside him, his only weapon. He stood up, eyes scanning the eye. "Trees! Who's there?" he called out. No answer. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, from the edge of the fog, a shape appeared. A tall, slim figure stepped out from the mist. It was a woman, or at least something that looked like one. She had long black hair, pale bluish skin, and eyes that glowed a deep burning red. Her dress was made of black leather and strange metal threads. She didn't walk. She glided over the ground like air moved for her. Mason's grip on the rod tightened. She stopped a few steps from the fire, watching him silently. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft and smooth. Like warm smoke. "You built a fire?" Mason nodded slowly, not lowering the rod. "Yeah, it's cold." She tilted her head. "That smell, it's rare." "What smell?" he asked. She looked at him. Her red eyes didn't blink. "Your blood. It smells awake." Mason's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked closer to the fire, her eyes never leaving his. The flames reflected in her pupils, making her look even more unreal. "You are alone," she said. "You bleed, but not like others. There is a song in your veins." Mason was frozen, not by fear, but by something else. Some strange pull inside him, like her voice was calling something deep in his body that had been sleeping. He took a step back. "What are you?" She smiled just a little. "I was once called Velsera. My people are forgotten now, burned from the stars. But some of us remain. In silence. In shadow." Mason's mind raced. He had read about creatures like this in old space records, rumors of alien vampires once hunted, never confirmed. Creatures with blood-based power living in the dark corners of the galaxy. "You're one of them," he said slowly. Velsera nodded. "And you are not what you think you are." He frowned. "I'm just a human engineer." "No," she whispered. "Not anymore." Then she turned to leave. "Wait!" Mason called out. "What do you mean?" She paused at the edge of the firelight. "I touched you once. You were dying, near the edge of the forest 2 nights ago. You don't remember. I gave you a drop. To save you." Mason's heart pounded. He did remember waking up suddenly. The wounds from the crash, gone. No scars, no pain. He thought, it was adrenaline or luck. But now, "You gave me your blood?" Velsera nodded slowly. "It was only a drop. But sometimes, one drop is enough to awaken a bond." Mason took a shaky breath. "What kind of bond?" She looked back at him with glowing eyes. "A dangerous one." Then she stepped into the fog and vanished. Mason stood there, frozen. The fire still burned behind him, but suddenly it didn't feel warm anymore. It felt like the beginning of something much bigger. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. Something inside him had changed. And whatever it was, she had started it. Mason couldn't sleep. The fire had turned to embers. The forest was quiet again, but inside his chest, something wasn't right. His heart beat in a strange rhythm, not fast, not slow, but like a second heartbeat was whispering beneath his own. He sat by the cold ashes staring at his hands. They looked normal, but they didn't feel normal. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. Velsera, her glowing red eyes, her soft voice, her warning. You are not what you think. You are. Suddenly he felt a sting in his neck like a spark of lightning. Then, a voice. But it wasn't his, and it wasn't out loud. Mason. His eyes shot open. No one was there. He stood quickly, heart pounding. The voice was inside his head. Do not be afraid. Who are you? He said out loud, spinning around. You know me. Velsera? He whispered. Yes. He gripped a tree trunk to steady himself. How are you doing this? The bond is growing. You carry my blood now. It listens, and it speaks. Mason felt cold sweat on his back. This wasn't normal. This wasn't human. And yet, deep inside, he wasn't afraid. He felt connected, as if her thoughts were brushing against his. Not reading them, but feeling them, the way someone feels music without words. I don't want to become a monster, he whispered. You won't, unless you fight it. Let it teach you. Let it open you. Then everything changed. A sharp pain ran down his spine. His vision turned red. He collapsed to the ground, shaking. The world spun, and his mind was filled with flashes. Not memories. Not his. Hers. He saw a burning city under two moons. A tower of glass shattering as silver ships fired beams from the sky. Velsera, screaming as her people ran, hunted, captured. Her fangs covered in blood. Her hands holding a dying child. A council of aliens in armor, calling her a curse. Then, blackness. Mason gasped as he woke. His body was covered in dirt. The pain had stopped, but something had changed. He could feel the forest, the roots under the ground, the birds nesting in the trees, even the heartbeat of a small animal hiding behind a bush. He stood up slowly. He could hear everything. His skin felt cool even though the morning sun had risen. The light stung his eyes, forcing him to shade them. He had never been this sensitive before. He reached for his flask, drank. It tasted like metal. He spit it out. His tongue hated normal food now. His stomach growled, but not from hunger, from thirst. He heard movement in the trees, footsteps, but not hers. Humans. He dropped low, hiding behind a rock. Two men appeared, holding scanners and rifles. They wore light body armor with the United Space Corps symbol. Rescue team, Mason almost called out. But then he heard one of them speak. We found traces of blood mutation. Keep weapons ready. Command said if we find the infected survivor, we terminate. Mason's chest tightened. Terminate? He wasn't infected, he was alive, he was himself. But to them, he was already a threat. He watched quietly as the soldiers moved past. Something deep inside him growled, but he held it back. After they left, he climbed a hill and looked out over the valley. The bond was stronger now. He could feel her, Velsera, like a faint star pulling him from far away. You're close, her voice whispered inside his head. The blood sings louder now. He didn't understand everything, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't go back to Earth. He couldn't call for rescue. He couldn't trust anyone, except her. Whatever this bond was, it had saved him, changed him. And now, it was calling him forward. Mason picked up a broken metal rod, tied a cloth around his hand, and started walking. Toward her, toward answers, and maybe toward something bigger than either of them. Far away in the ruins of an ancient temple, Velsera stood in a pool of silver water. Her reflection shimmered with energy. Her eyes closed. "He's awakening," she whispered. Then she smiled. They always fear what they don't understand. The wind blew hard through the alien forest, bending the glowing trees and shaking the leaves like whispers. Mason walked through the shadows, guided only by a feeling in his chest, a strange pull, like a magnet inside his blood. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew who he was going toward. Velsera, the alien vampire woman who gave him her blood, the woman who had changed everything. His body felt different now. He didn't get tired. He didn't feel cold. His skin healed fast, even small cuts disappeared in seconds. His ears picked up sounds miles away. He could see in the dark like it was daytime. But with all these gifts came something else. The hunger. It started small. Dry throat, a sharp ache in his jaw. Then, the thirst. Water didn't help. Food made him sick. His body rejected it. The more he tried to stay human, the worse it got. Now, every time he walked past a small animal, he could hear its heartbeat, feel its heat, smell its life. And the worst part, he wanted it. "No," Mason said out loud, shaking his head. "I won't become a monster." But deep inside, the hunger growled. It didn't care about right or wrong. It wanted blood. As night fell, Mason found shelter in a hollow tree. He sat with his knees to his chest, trying to stay still, trying to breathe. But then, he heard something. Footsteps, not heavy like boots. Soft, fast, wild. He stood slowly and stepped outside. That's when he saw them creatures with long limbs, gray skin, and no eyes. Their heads twitched like birds. Their mouths were filled with rows of tiny, sharp teeth. They sniffed the air and turned toward him. Velsera's voice echoed in his mind. "If your bond awakens, others will smell it. Hunters of blood. Hollow. Walkers. They eat what we are." The creatures shrieked, then charged. Mason ran, faster than any human could, but they were fast too. He dodged between trees, leaped over fallen logs, and slid through thick roots. The hunger in him flared, but not for blood this time, for survival. He reached a cliff and jumped, landing hard on a lower slope, rolling through rocks and mud. Pain shot through his body, but it faded in seconds. He stood and looked back. The walkers paused at the cliff edge, watching, waiting. Then slowly they vanished into the trees. He was safe. For now. But something had changed. In the fight, he liked it. The chase, the fear, the way his body responded, fast and perfect. It scared him. Later that night, a small animal approached his camp. A glowing rabbit-like creature with blue fur and long ears. It sniffed the firelight. Mason watched it. His hands trembled. His teeth hurt. He tried to turn away, but the hunger screamed inside him. 1 step, 2 steps. The creature didn't run. It trusted him, and that's what made it worse. His heart pounded, his breathing got sharp. He crouched down, and just as he reached out, Velsera's voice hit him. "Stop." He froze. She stepped from the trees, her body half lit by moonlight. "You came," he whispered. She looked at the animal and gently waved it away. It hopped into the dark. Mason dropped to his knees. I couldn't control it." "I know," she said softly. "I was going to—" His voice broke. "I thought I was better than this." She knelt beside him. "You're still human, but your body doesn't understand. It's not evil, it's instinct. You must teach it." He looked into her red eyes. "Can I?" She placed a hand on his chest. "You're stronger than most. The bond has chosen you. That means there's something inside you worth saving." Mason breathed deeply. The hunger was still there, but her presence pushed it down, controlled it. "How do I stop it forever?" he asked. "You don't," she said. "But you learn to live with it, to feed it, without losing yourself." He nodded slowly, then asked, "What happens if I fail?" She didn't blink. "You won't." They sat by the fire, silent. The stars moved slowly above. The hunger inside him quieted, but never fully went away. It was a part of him now, just like she was. Far beyond the trees, on the edge of the valley, glowing eyes watched them, from the dark. The Hollow Walkers hadn't given up, and neither had the nightmares coming next. The fire crackled softly. Mason sat near it, sharpening a piece of scrap metal into a blade. Velsera stood a few feet away, watching the dark trees. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. But she felt them coming. The Hollow Walkers were moving again. They were closer than before. Their cold hunger scratched against the edges of her mind. Even the bond inside Mason could feel it now, like insects crawling under his skin. "How many?" Mason asked, standing up. Velsera didn't turn. "Too many. And they don't stop. They feed on fear, on blood, on us." "Why me?" Mason asked. "Why are they after me now?" She looked at him, her red eyes soft but serious. "Because you carry something they hate. Hope." That night the wind carried a strange sound, a deep hum, a whisper inside a growl, then silence, and then screams. Far away at first, then closer. Mason grabbed his blade. Velsera's hand lifted slightly, palm glowing with red symbols. "They're here," she said. The Hollow Walkers burst from the trees, tall, fast and twisted. Their skin was stretched too tight, their mouths full of long fangs, their eyeless faces locked onto Mason like he was a light in the dark. He stood ready, but they didn't attack him first. They went for Velsera. She moved like a shadow, leaping high, striking with deadly grace. Her claws tore through one creature's chest, but two more replaced it. "Why her?" Mason shouted as he ran into the fight. Velsera's voice echoed in his mind. "They want me erased. If I die, the bond dies too." Mason struck one creature, his blade slicing through its neck. His strength was unnatural now, stronger than any normal man. His eyes glowed bright red. His body moved without fear, but for every one they killed, two more came. And they didn't bleed. They just kept coming. Mason and Velsera stood back to back. "There's too many," Mason shouted. "We must break the link," she replied. "What link?" "They follow the blood bond like a beacon. If I weaken our connection, they'll lose the scent." "You mean, you'll cut the bond?" "No," she said. "Just silence it." She placed her hand over his heart. Her fingers burned like fire. Pain shot through his chest. The bond dimmed. The hunger vanished. His senses faded to human levels. And then, the walkers stopped, confused, sniffing, searching. They hissed and howled, then vanished back into the trees. Mason dropped to his knees, gasping. He felt empty, like a part of him had been shut off. Velsera knelt beside him, her body shaking slightly. "It worked, but it won't last long." Mason looked at her, struggling to speak. "I felt human again." She nodded. "But that's not who you are anymore." The next morning they hid in a cave near the mountains. Velsera rested, weak, from using so much blood power. Mason sat at the entrance, watching the mist roll across the hills. He felt strange, like he had one foot in two worlds, half human, half something else, and being hunted by monsters who wanted to rip both sides apart. "What are they?" he asked, as Velsera opened her eyes. "They were once like me," she said. "My people created them during the old war. But they were cursed by greed. They ate too much, took too much, and they became hollow. Now they feed on anything that carries my blood. So I'm their target now," Mason said. She nodded. "Yes, because you're still changing. They fear what you might become." Mason looked at his hands. They shook even now. "Do you fear it too?" Velsera paused, then softly said, "No, because I've never seen someone fight so hard to stay himself." Outside the cave, strange clouds formed in the sky. Something was coming. Not just hollow walkers. Something older, stronger. Velsera stood slowly. "We have to go," she said. "Where?" "There's a temple," she replied. "Far in the west. Built before my kind were hunted. It holds answers. And maybe the way to end this." "Will the walkers follow?" "Yes," she said. "But next time we stop running." Mason looked at her, then at the red sky. He nodded. "Let's finish it." Deep in the forest, in a broken fortress, a creature sat on a throne made of bones. It opened its mouth, showing rows of teeth. The blood calls louder now. Its claws scratched the stone. The bonded flame must be put out. The sun never rose fully on this world. It only gave a dull red light like a dying star trying to breathe. Mason and Velsera walked through the mist-covered valley, leaving the forest behind. Each step took them farther from danger, and closer to truth. They reached the ancient temple by nightfall. It was carved into the side of a black mountain, hidden by vines and stone. Strange markings glowed faintly on the walls, symbols of a lost language, older than anything Mason had seen. The entrance opened like a mouth. Cold air rushed out, and with it, memories neither of them had spoken yet. Velsera paused. "This place was once sacred to my kind," she said. "Before the wars, before the burning." Mason looked at her. "You said you were once a queen, but you never told me the whole story." She turned slowly, her eyes glowing softly in the dark. "Then it's time I did." Inside the temple, torches lit by blood magic flickered to life as they entered. The floor was made of white stone, smooth and unbroken. The walls showed carvings of winged beings standing beside stars, holding light and darkness in balance. Velsera stood before one of the carvings and touched the figure's face. "That was my mother," she said quietly. "Queen Saravel. She ruled not with fear, but with knowledge. Our people once guarded the veins of time, the living blood of the galaxy." Mason stepped closer. "But the other species feared you." She nodded. "They didn't understand us. They saw our blood gifts as weapons. They demanded we serve their empires. When we refused, they came with fire." Her fingers moved across. Another carving. This one showed her younger self standing alone as ships burned in the sky. "I was the last royal of my line. They offered me safety. If I betrayed my own, I chose exile instead." Mason's throat tightened. "You gave up everything." She looked at him. "Not everything. My name still lives." She turned to face him fully. "I never gave you my true name, because names have power. But now, you deserve it." Mason waited. Velsera stepped into the red glow of the torches. "I am Velshanzari, daughter of flame, keeper of the bound bloodline and the last of the eternal heart." The temple reacted. Its walls vibrated faintly. The carvings lit up with crimson light. Her name awoke the place. Mason didn't speak. He couldn't. He just stared at her, not as a creature from legend, but as someone who had carried pain, sacrifice, and silence for centuries, and now stood, not with pride, but with hope in her eyes. She walked to the center of the temple where a stone basin sat. Inside it, clear liquid shimmered. "This is the memory pool," she said. "It can show your soul." She cut her hand and let a drop of her blood fall in. Then she looked at Mason. "You must do the same." He hesitated. "If I do this, what happens?" "We'll see what the bond truly is," she said. "And if it was fate, or something more." Mason stepped forward, cut his palm gently, and let a single drop fall. The liquid flared with red and silver light, and the vision began. They stood side by side, but not in the temple. They saw another world. 2 stars in the sky, a great city floating in the clouds. 2 people stood in the center, one human, one not, laughing, touching hands, connected, then war, fire, death, a broken bond, and a whisper. They will meet again, in another time, in another body. The bond cannot be erased. The vision ended. Mason gasped. Valsera stepped back, stunned. That was us, he whispered. She nodded slowly. Reborn, chosen again. Their bond wasn't an accident. It was old, deeper than blood, older than war. Then, the torches flickered. A cold wind blew through the temple. Valsera's expression changed. They found us. Mason turned. At the entrance, a figure stepped in. Tall, covered in dark robes, no face. Its voice was sharp, like broken glass. You speak the old names. You awaken the bond. That is forbidden. Valsera's eyes burned red. You have no right to enter this place. I have every right, the figure said. I was born of the blood you abandoned, she gasped. No. Mason stood beside her. Who is he? She whispered. My brother. The figure stepped forward. You chose love over power, sister. But now the bond ends here. You gave him your blood. He raised his hand. I will take it back. The temple shook. Statues cracked. The final war was about to begin, and Mason, once a simple engineer, now stood between ancient bloodlines, lost truths, and a fight for everything love had built. The temple trembled. Red dust fell from the high ceiling. Old stones cracked under the pressure of ancient power returning to life. The air grew thick with energy, cold, heavy, and angry. Mason stood between Valsera and her brother, the stranger in dark robes, glowing with shadow. Everything. Inside, Mason screamed, run. But something deeper said stand. He wasn't just human anymore, he was bound. Valsera stepped forward, her voice sharp. Jairus, she said, naming her brother at last. You were lost. I searched for you after the war. Jairus laughed, though. His face was still hidden. You searched with silence. You left the bond. You let our kind fall while you hid. I didn't hide, she said softly. I waited for someone strong enough to carry the bond forward. She glanced at Mason. Jairus followed her gaze. The human? He scoffed. He is weak, a vessel filled with confusion. I will empty him and take back what is mine. Mason stepped up, shaking but standing firm. I didn't ask for this, he said, but I won't give it up. The bond saved me. It cursed you, Jairus hissed. You are a mistake that should have died at the fire. Mason raised his fists. Maybe, but I'm still here. Suddenly, Jairus raised his hand and the bond screamed. Mason dropped to his knees. Pain shot through his chest. His blood boiled. The bond inside him twisted. Valsera shouted, Stop! She lunged forward, red light bursting from her hands. But Jairus caught her in midair with invisible force. You are still too soft, sister. Still hoping that love can beat power. He looked down at Mason. You feel it now, don't you? The hunger. The truth. Mason trembled. His eyes glowed. His fangs pushed from his gums. He felt the pull, the part of him that wanted to give in, to tear, to burn, to become like Jairus. But then, he heard her voice. Valsera's voice. Inside, the pain. Mason, look at me, listen, you're stronger than the blood. Stronger than him. Because you choose who you are. He opened his eyes, and he saw her, bound in chains of energy, still fighting for him, fighting with love. Not hunger, not control, not fear. That was the choice. That had always been the choice. Mason stood slowly, bleeding, glowing, but awake. I don't want to be your weapon, Jairus, he said. I don't want to be your king, or your beast. He looked at Valsera. I just want to protect her. That's all? Valsera smiled, tears in her glowing eyes. Jairus hissed, furious. Then die for her. He raised both hands. A storm of black fire roared toward Mason. Mason closed his eyes and stepped into it. But the fire didn't burn him. It bent around him. The bond inside him pulsed, not with hunger, but with will. He had made his choice. and the bond obeyed. A wave of silver-red light burst from his chest. It slammed into Jairus like a hammer. The dark figure flew back, crashing into the wall. Stones fell. The temple shook. Velsera's chains shattered. She ran to Mason, catching him before he fell. He was cold, barely breathing, but alive. "You completed the bond," she whispered. "Not with blood, not with rage, but with choice." He smiled weakly. "I guess that's what my superpower." Jairus rose from the rubble, limping. "This isn't over," he growled. "The bond will break. You will beg for the hunger one day." Velsera stepped in front of Mason. "No, he's stronger than that." She raised her hand and spoke her brother's name, his true name. Jairus gasped as light wrapped around him, locking him in silence. The temple responded. The carvings glowed. The shadows fled. Jairus vanished, sealed away by the very blood he tried to control. The silence returned. Mason collapsed into her arms, exhausted. "I thought I'd lose myself," he whispered. "You didn't," she said. "You found yourself." They rested under the moonlight. Mason lay beside the pool inside the temple. His reflection wasn't human anymore, but it wasn't monstrous either. It was something new. He touched his chest where the bond pulsed gently, warm, steady, alive. He had made his choice. And the moon, high above, bore witness. But far above the stars, another force stirred, one that watched from deep space, one that had felt the bond awaken. "A human and a blood queen," it whispered. "Interesting," it smiled. "Let's see how far they can go." The forest was quiet again. Birds sang in the red trees. The wind whispered between the stones. The fog had lifted, and in the middle of it all, a campfire burned. The same place where it all began. Mason sat near the flames, sharpening a new blade. Not for war, for survival. His eyes were calm now, no longer glowing wild but steady and bright. His heart still beat, but slower, stronger. He was not the same man who crashed here, not the same man who met her. He was something else now, and across the fire from him, Velsera sat in silence. She wore a long cloak made of dark thread and glowing marks. Her eyes no longer burned with pain or fear. They were peaceful, watching him. "You're quiet tonight," she said softly. Mason smiled faintly. "Just thinking." "About?" He tossed a small log into the fire. Sparks rose into the sky like tiny stars. "About the first night we met," he said, "when you stepped out of the fog and said my blood smelled awake." She laughed gently. "I remember. You looked like you wanted to run." "I did," he said, "but I stayed. And now look at you." He held up his hand. A small red flame appeared in his palm, not from fuel, not from heat, but from the bond. It danced without burning. "I didn't understand this before," he said. "The fire, the bond, the hunger." "But you do now?" she asked. He nodded. "It's not about control, it's about purpose." He looked into her eyes. "You gave me life, but you also gave me choice." A moment passed, then she spoke quietly. "There's something I need to show you." She stood and held out her hand. Mason took it. Together, they walked into the forest. They reached a hidden cave just behind the ruins of the temple. Inside, a circle of firestones glowed softly. In the center was a pool of liquid light. Velsera stepped into it and turned. "This is the seed flame. It's where the bond first began. Long ago, before my people turned it into a weapon, before the wars." She touched the water, and images rose. Old bonds, peaceful connections, moments of healing and unity. Alien and human, friend and enemy, light and shadow. "It was never meant for war," she said. "Only for balance." Mason stepped into the light beside her. "What happens now?" he asked. Velsera looked up. "Now we decide what this fire becomes next." Back at the camp, they sat by the fire once more. But this time, Mason wasn't just surviving. He was listening to the trees, to the stars, to her, and to the bond inside him. It pulsed gently, not demanding, not twisting, just there, like a second heartbeat. A quiet promise. Suddenly, a distant sound echoed through the forest. Engines, a ship. Velsera stood alert. Mason reached for his blade, then stopped. A soft voice crackled through his old comm unit. "This is Earth Command Vessel Delta 9 we picked up your signal. Are you alive, Lieutenant Mason?" He stared at the device. Earth. Home. A life he once knew. Velsera looked at him, unsure. He turned to her. "I could go back," he said. "Pretend none of this happened." She said nothing. "But I'd know. I'd remember everything. You, the bond, the fire." He paused, then smiled. "And I'm not leaving it behind." He picked up the comm and replied, "This is Mason. Alive and well, but not returning. Repeat, Lieutenant. I've found something worth staying for." Then he turned off the signal and dropped the device into the fire. It melted silently. Velsera stepped beside him. "You chose this life. I chose you." They stood together under the stars. The fire behind them still burned, and far across the galaxy, others felt its warmth. Old powers stirred. Ancient watchers took notice and whispers spread. The bonded flame has not gone out. In time they would become legend, a human who carried immortal fire, an alien queen who gave love instead of war. Together they walked the line between blood and peace. And as long as their campfire burned, as long as their bond pulsed, one truth remained. This fire would never die.